This episode of the Power of Pro Wrestling podcast is dedicated to the memory of a late, great ECW original, Axel Rotten. Axel Rotten, born Brian Knighton, started his career in 1987 and has competed in various companies throughout the United States and overseas. Most notably, ECW, USWA, and even had brief stints in WWE, WCW, and Total Nonstop Action Wrestling TNA. Brian Knight is most noted for his hardcore death matches and top-paid death matches with on-camera brother Ian Rotten, who, oddly enough, trained him. Axel Rotten has had a briefly successful career, but never held major championships inside the big national promotions. Axel Rotten will forever be known as one of the hardcore chair swinging freaks. God bless you, Axel.
And this podcast is brought to you by the Repost Network. Repost Network. Monetize your SoundCloud content. Sign up today at repostnetwork.com. And by Jeff from Sleep Cheap. Sleep Cheap, the home of the $1.99 mattress. This is the Power of Pro Wrestling. A podcast by wrestling fans for wrestling fans. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Coming up today, we're discussing if AJ Styles should have joined NXT before going to the main roster, plus our top 5 moments and bold predictions next on the Power of Pro Wrestling podcast. And welcome to the show. This is your host, Robert Rad.
I'm Chris Heineken. Thank you so much for joining us. You already heard the open, so let's get to it. Discussion topic, and we're discussing something with style.
Yeah, AJ Styles, as a matter of fact. So I'm going to give you a little background before we head into our discussion question. For weeks, rumors in the internet wrestling world swirled around the IWC about AJ Styles signing a contract with WWE. Born Alan Neil Jones, AJ made his pro wrestling debut in 1998 and has wrestled in many acclaimed promotions such as WCW, TNA, Ring of Honor, and New Japan Pro Wrestling, where he has achieved great success. Upon signing with the WWE, Styles made his return to WWE, appearing at the Royal Rumble as entrant number 3 in the match, along with appearing on both Raw and SmackDown, while other established names such as Samoa Joe, Kevin Owens, and etc. have all started in NXT. So, Cornbread, I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on the question. Should AJ Styles went to NXT first before joining the main roster?
Yes and no. Yes, because you follow the protocol just like everybody else. Due to the fact that WWE had to do something and knew that Brock Lesnar and The Rock was literally not going to be enough, not even Triple H. They had to do something to really get themselves back in the WrestleMania hunt. And they pulled the trump card with AJ Styles. That's the one time I would actually give them a pass on. Other than that, he should have been in NXT with everybody else. But they knew, just like WWE and everybody else knew, that AJ Styles was way more talked about than any other athlete. And a lot more accomplished than any other athlete. WWE had to do something. They had to force their hand because they knew the veterans weren't going to get it done, and they could not, and, shame on them for this, does not even want to do anything with their main roster talent, trying to boost them up for crying out loud. They had to do something. This is the one time I would give WWE a pass for AJ Styles on the main roster. Otherwise, NXT for him.
Well, my answer here is yes, I think AJ Styles should have went to NXT before joining the main roster. To me, AJ Styles is no different from anybody else. You have a set protocol, like you mentioned in kind of why you said he should have went to NXT. I've had a college course called Legal Environment and Business, and there's a term that we use in the legal environment of business that's called stare decisis, which is Latin for let the decision stand. That's where we come up with the term precedent. WWE has set a precedent with NXT, signing the guys like I mentioned in the opener. You've brought in Sami Zayn, who's been on the independents a long time. You have Samoa Joe that was on the independents for a long time. You even had Kevin Owens that was on the independents for a long time. You made each and every one of those guys come through NXT and stay there for a little while before they got brought up to Raw and SmackDown. Now, granted, Kevin Owens kind of got fast-tracked, but still, he went through NXT. He debuted in December, and then probably 6 months later, he was on the main roster. I'm okay with that. For talent like that, I feel, and this is kind of my plan, you need to let them, for them who have already have the background experience of the indies and stuff like that, even the guys like Gargano, Ciampa, stuff like that, if you do have plans for them to go on the main roster, let them come into the Performance Center, kind of let them get initiated to the style, let them have some NXT matches, and kind of let them get initiated to the style, maybe 3-4 months, not too terribly long, and when you know they have kind of adjusted to the style that you guys are presenting, and no pun intended for saying Styles, since we're talking AJ Styles, then you can bring them up to the main roster of Raw and SmackDown. That's what I feel the problem is with WWE. And that's why I feel AJ Styles should have been treated just like Samoa Joe, stuff like that. Now that he's on the main roster, I feel they need to bring up Sami Zayn, Samoa Joe, anyone who went through the independents and has been in NXT for a while. I feel it's only fair and right that they bring them up to Raw, SmackDown pay-per-view along with Styles.
Well, let me ask you this question. If, and only if AJ Styles wouldn't have debuted at the Royal Rumble, would the Royal Rumble be successful? Especially with all the injuries. I mean, literally, would anybody even be talking about the Royal Rumble?
Well, I mean, even with AJ Styles in the Rumble, people are let down by the result of the Rumble. So, I mean, it depends on how you define success for a Rumble. They did what they needed to do and put the belt on Triple H.
With all the injuries and everything, how many more times would WWE have to go to the trump card here just to become relevant as far as going to WrestleMania is concerned with all the injuries?
Well, I mean, AJ Styles did get a good pop, and if you're looking for a good pop, then yeah, that's a good pop. But to be kind of fair and just, I mean, the Royal Rumble was a success. It needed to do what WWE wanted to do. So, yeah, it was a success. AJ Styles just gave you another indie guy that you could pop for.
It just gave you another reason to talk about WWE.
Yeah, well, that's all the time we have for this segment. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and our top 5 moments are coming up next, so don't you go anywhere.
Tired of the same uncomfortable mattress? Want to sleep better without breaking the bank? I got good news for you. Go to Sleep Cheap. They have a huge inventory of mattresses at incredible prices. With guaranteed financing with no credit score required, that makes it easy for you to qualify for a brand new mattress. Use the promo code PPWP today and get 30% off. Go see Jeff Toddy at 2801 South Carraway Road in Jonesboro, Arkansas. It's time to get your sleep back. It's time to sleep cheap.
Hi, this is Joe Goodenmuth, and you're listening to the Power Pro Wrestling Broadcast.
Welcome back to the show. Brace yourselves. It's now time for our top 5. With all the exciting action this week, we'll be counting down our favorite moments from 5 to 1, starting with number 5.
My number 5 goes to Monday Night Raw. Kevin Owens, Dolph Ziggler. The only good match on Raw, as far as everything else is concerned. I really wasn't impressed with anything else. Just flat, but that was the only thing that was worth anything in my book. Ziggler, Owens, another rivalry. Hopefully they'll do something with both of them to really, really elevate themselves and push themselves forward. It was a number 7 on my rating scale, 7 out of 10. Excellent match, very, very competitive. That's my number 5. What's yours?
Okay, well, my number 5, I'm actually going to go to Ring of Honor for this one, and it is going to be the Jay Lethal and Adam Cole, baby, against the Red Dragon, the main event tag match. I like this match just for the simple fact of the dynamic that was brought to it. You have the 14th anniversary show, which I think we're going to be discussing coming up here real soon, so that's a teaser for you guys listening here in the next few weeks. And just the dynamic of Jay Lethal having to, I know it's not a new concept, but just having the team with Adam Cole, who's going to be one of his opponents, and the 14th anniversary show to defend his Ring of Honor title against. But I just like that dynamic, and facing Red Dragon, which has Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly, which Kyle O'Reilly is the other guy in the main event. That was kind of an interesting dynamic, and I know you're very big on Red Dragon, so
yes, I am.
They're a great team. So I like this match. That's why I put it at number 5. Number 4.
Number 4 on my list, I'm going to Lucha Underground on this one. And I got this one as upset. Mac versus PJ Black. Wow, that rhymes. Mac versus PJ Black. Very, very Smash Mouth style. Very, very Smash Mouth match. Extremely competitive, especially PJ Black making his debut in Bull Heights. Mac, as we all know, especially if you followed Lucha Underground or even followed some of the independent stuff in California, Mac is excellent in the ring. He's a perfect proof of don't let looks deceive you. Or may I say, looks can be deceiving. That's my number 4, Upset City. Mac upsets PJ Black. What's your number 4?
Okay, my number 4, I'm actually going to stick with the same show, but it's going to be a different match. You had PJ Black in the Mac. Well, I had Puma Pentagon Jr. against the Disciples of Death. And I just, another good dynamic here. You had in season 1 of Lucha Underground, you had Pentagon Jr. coming out and breaking everybody's arm and stuff like that. And Prince Puma was the Lucha Underground champion. So he lost it there to Mil Huertas. And you had, like we talked about last week, you had Prince Puma come out and saving Ivelisse from getting pretty well beat down by Mil Huertas, and then you had Pentagon Jr. come out and break his arm. So just the dynamic of what happened from last week kind of carried over to this week. So continuity and storytelling made this a great thing. And then having to fight the Disciples of Death, which are kind of the minions of Katrina, who is kind of with Mil Huertas. So it's kind of the continuation of the story, and the continuity was great. So I loved it for that. And Lucha Underground always puts on a good show, good matches. So that's kind of why I put this at my number 4 moment. It was just a good moment there. And just like I said, the interesting dynamic that came from having Prince Puma and Pentagon Jr. having to work together and put aside their differences to fight the Disciples of Death.
And also keep in mind, Katrina is the sole proprietor.
Proprietor, yeah.
Yeah, proprietor compared to
Dario, yeah.
Dario. But there's something along that lines, and we'll leave it at that.
Number 3.
Number 3, the World Television Championship to Ring of Honor. Roderick Strong, Masada. A lot of people really, if you really have been studying a lot of Japanese stuff like I have, or even if you just study like Texas-style independence, Masada has a worldwide reputation for being a little smash mouth and being a little unorthodox. But the thing that made this one my number 3 in his match against Roderick Strong was the fact that they both have amateur backgrounds. That impressed me a ton. Because normally you would think Masada, you would think hardcore guy, you would think weapons guy. The guy that always has the bamboo sticks in his hand, ready to literally bash your brains in just with those bamboo sticks sticking out. That was my number 3. Roderick Strong barely escaped. All it took was a devastating knee. Otherwise, this was a competitive match. Almost an 8 on this scale. That's why it's my number 3. What's yours?
Okay, my number 3, I have to go to the Beast from the East, if I can say that way, or the Beast in the East, Mr. Brock Lesnar, and his confrontation at the beginning of Monday Night Raw with Dean Ambrose. It was just, a lot of people have said this is Ambrose's best promo since breaking out from the Shield, and I just love the dynamic of Ambrose coming out there, or like talking about, hey, I'm not scared of you. Granted, you're bigger than me. You can kick my butt. But I'm not scared of you. All you are is hype. And you can keep suplexing me all you want, but I'm going to keep getting up, and I'm just going to tire you out. So, I mean, I just love that dynamic from the confrontation. And what was
like a rope-a-dope.
Yeah, and Lesnar coming out at the end of the night after Ambrose had a match and kind of giving him the F5 to like, okay, you think I'm all hype. I'm going to show you I'm as legit as I say I am.
He spared him.
So, yeah, I liked how they did that. So that was kind of like my number 3 moment. So
Number 2.
Number 2 on my list, I'm sticking with Ring of Honor. And it is the main event. What ended up being your number 5 ends up being my number 2. Red Dragon versus Lethal and Cole. 4 world-class athletes. And a lot of people really don't realize, but Jay Lethal is on a different schedule than everybody else in Ring of Honor. He's on the championship schedule. He's got everybody coming after him for that title. Hopefully, he comes back to the States after Honor Rising to Japan with that world championship. That way he defends it against Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole. 2-man smash machine, Red Dragon, you know I'm big on. But I got to give props to Adam Cole. He actually learned this from Matt Hardy. Excellent ring psychology. He is a genius. I have to give it to him. Excellent match, especially at the end where Red Dragon finally scored the win over Adam Cole. But bar none, excellent match. That's why it's my number 2. Lethal has got a big target on his back. What's yours, number 2?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned this guy in number 2 because this person's not number 2. He's a V1. I have from TNA Impact, Mr. Matt Hardy against Kurt Angle. Just a great
Big Money Matt.
Big Money Matt, like you like to refer to him as off the podcast. So,
Well, that's his name now.
yeah, Big Money Matt. So, I mean, I just love that. It was a great competitive match between the two. And Kurt Angle being on his farewell tour to get a shot at the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Just that dynamic there. Great competitive match. It got me pumped up for what they're doing with Kurt Angle. And, I mean, I'm just looking forward to the Kurt Angle retirement tour. I am kind of sad that he is going to be taking hopefully some time off from wrestling because he's still a wrestling machine, even at his age, probably pushing 40, if he's not already over that age, to still go and be as good as he is in the ring is just, it's mind-blowing. So just Kurt Angle, Matt Hardy is my number 2 pick without a doubt.
And I'm going to add a little something to your number 2 pick as far as that match goes. 14 suplexes total. 13 of them were Germans.
Yeah, so I mean, you could say Matt Hardy went to Suplex City for
And
this
he got
match.
a grip for a suplex.
Yeah, so
Number 1.
My number 1, I'm going to Impact Wrestling. We're going to stick with it. This is my number 1, despite the fact that the World Championship match, which was your number 2, was great. The new X Division champion, yeah, whole lot of controversy in that one. I'm going with Hardcore War. Bear Money and the Wolves versus John Bram, Crazy Steve, and Abyss, known as Decay. Innovator stuff, but I got to give this ends up being my 10 for my number 1 for 3 reasons. 1, 7-pack suplex. I love when 7 guys are all involved in one suplex. 7-pack suplex, my 10A call. Excellent war. Steve and Abyss, scary genius. And James Storm, a keg of beer. That's my number 1. Yours?
well, I guess you've kind of ruined it for me because my number 1, I have to stick with Impact Wrestling. It was probably the best moment all week, the Hardcore War, and just
Add your flavor to it.
yeah. So I mean, just the interesting dynamic, it being an 8-man tag match, kind of one man from each team, and almost like I guess could you say a War Games from old
it's a
NWA,
little bit,
WCW?
it's a little bit like Lethal Lockdown,
Yeah.
old school, to be
Yeah,
honest.
well, without the cage, and I mean,
yeah, without the cage.
But here's the thing: instead of the weapons being provided, you got to pick your own weapon. Just the interesting dynamic, like you mentioned, James Storm with a keg of beer, baseball bats, kendo sticks, chairs.
It's like old school Monsters Ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's just bring your own weapon. So I mean, it was just the best thing that happened all week
Keg of beer.
yeah, the keg of beer. I mean, it was just interesting to have a keg of beer to use as a weapon, and I mean, it's so fitting for James Storm to have something like that.
And it wasn't a beer bottle, it was a keg of beer.
Yeah, I mean, I was even talking to you saying it was a keg of beer or a beer bottle would be his weapon. He says, screw that, I'm bringing the whole keg.
That's what made it good.
Yeah, so I mean, that's our top 5 moment, so
And even though that's good, we got something that's even better, and it's bold predictions.
yes, so we got to take a quick commercial break, guys. Stay tuned with us. Don't go anywhere. We'll have our bold predictions right after this.
Tired of the same uncomfortable mattress? Want to sleep better without breaking the bank? I got good news for you. Go to Sleep Cheap. They have a huge inventory of mattresses at incredible prices. With guaranteed financing with no credit score required, that makes it easy for you to qualify for a brand new mattress. Use the promo code PPWP today and get 30% off. Go see Jeff Toddy at 2801 South Caraway Road in Jonesboro, Arkansas. It's time to get your sleep back. It's time to sleep cheap.
This is Amber.
And this is Amanda. And you're listening to the Power Pro Wrestling Podcast.
Welcome back to the show. It's now time for our most daring segment, Bold Predictions.
Bold.
We list the topics, we make the predictions. Starting with Daniel Bryan announces his retirement before WrestleMania. Do you see this as a reality or not?
I see it as a setup to TNA.
So you see this as a reality?
I see it as a setup to TNA. I'm not saying it's a retirement or whatnot. I say if he comes back and it fails for a third time, and WWE decides to go scratch the sheet, I say the door opens for TNA.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't want to see this as a reality. I mean, it's quite possible.
No one wants to see it as reality. Sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is quite possible it's going to happen. It's rumored that on Raw, all coming from Seattle, which is very close to his hometown of Aberdeen, Washington, that he's supposed to be on there. So, I mean, and there are rumors swirling around that he is going to be making a major announcement. So, I'm hoping it's not retirement. I'm hoping he's announcing that he's returning to the ring. So, I don't hopefully see this as a reality, but it's quite possible that it will be a reality. Number 2, Impact Wrestling hits 1 million in ratings. Do you see this as a reality or not?
Yes. And I even see something big. If they actually use and take their sister partners and use them properly, I think they'll have a lot more. I think if they pulled the CBS card, just one primetime special. It doesn't have to be big or anything. Just one primetime special on CBS will do the trick for TNA. I see it happening.
Well, I mean, it depends on how they're going to do it because their ratings have been shooting up like they were starting to get close to the 1 million viewer mark. But I believe this last week's
It was just one first down.
Has went down, so we will see what happens. So, I mean, if they continue to grow, I mean, it is possible that we may see this as a reality of them hitting 1 million views for Impact Wrestling.
I mean, just 4 out of 5 weeks they grew. Just 4 out of 5.
Yeah, so hopefully this is just the hiccup that has happened, and hopefully they're going to continue on the upward trend because obviously we want Impact to succeed.
Of course.
Okay, number 3. How about Brie Bella wins the Divas title before Mania? Do you see this as a reality or not?
With the way that just to get more interest into the Divas division outside of Total Divas, I say it could happen. That's just flat. Tell it like it is. Whether it's against Charlotte, I really don't know. But with something going on with Sasha and Charlotte, something is kind of swaying my decision towards the opposite direction to where Sasha may end up having a WrestleMania moment if the title match goes down at WrestleMania, if it is Charlotte versus Sasha.
Yeah, well, I don't see this as a reality just for the simple fact of what you're saying. It looks like they're going maybe with Becky, Sasha, and Charlotte for WrestleMania. They could swerve us and give us a multi-divas match at WrestleMania like they've done several times before. So,
just to get them involved.
Just to get them involved. So, I mean, that is very possible. Or they could even give a fatal 4-way with bringing in Brie. But I don't see this as a reality for her winning the title before WrestleMania. And, I mean, I would think it would be a stretch even at Mania that Brie Bella wins it, just for the simple fact of you're possibly going to have Nikki Bella coming back and her having a rematch with Charlotte. I would say is probably going to be in the works. I don't see Brie Bella winning the title before WrestleMania. Let's move on to NXT on national TV the week before Mania, like right after WrestleMania or before. Do you see NXT coming to national TV?
It's going to be hard for me to say this, but no. And the reason being is because NXT is one of the things that's attracting people to the WWE network. It's one of their highest rated shows on the network, other than certain pay-per-views. It would be a miracle if it happened, but right now at this particular point, they have to get, before they even decide to sign any other television deal, because syndication did not work for them. Local broadcast television did not work for them. Their only ally was NBC, and that's the only time you're showing replays of WrestleMania, and you've been showing it every single year. So I say no.
I don't see this as a reality for the simple fact of they do have the long-term contracts already set in place for Raw and SmackDown to be on the USA Network. So I don't think we're going to see NXT coming to national TV the week of Mania or even the week after WrestleMania, just for the simple fact of those contracts, unless they decide to renegotiate contracts and they're going to see that the ratings are going to improve for cutting down Raw and then adding the NXT somewhere. That's the only way I could see it coming to national TV right now.
And USA has kind of been throwing the hammer down because they knew Tough Enough wasn't going to be successful, even despite multiple attempts. So right now, USA Network and Comcast on NBC Universal is playing defense here.
Okay.
Raw and SmackDown, probably their only two shows they really do need to focus on.
Okay, well, let's finish it off with your favorite wrestler, John Cena, returning to the ring before WrestleMania. Do you see that as a reality or not?
If they're smart, they'll put him in the ring at WrestleMania. If they're smart. Now, before, I really don't see that as a possibility. But I will say this. It could be possible that they may have him the night after Fastlane. That could be a possibility.
It's hard for me to see this as a reality just for the simple fact of I don't know the severity of John Cena's injury. So, I mean, I've heard that
he's in recovery right now.
Yeah, I mean, if he's in recovery, we know how hardworking John Cena was. He got hurt back in 2007 on October 1st, and he was back in January, so just a few months recovery. So, with John Cena being out for a little bit now, it's possible that he may return to the ring at WrestleMania. I just don't know how fast-track WWE wants to do, especially now that they are more concerned with people's health.
Especially if you've been following John Cena's Twitter or anything else concerning John Cena as far as social media goes, bar none, he's already back training.
Yeah, so I mean, if he is, that he could potentially be back in the ring at WrestleMania. I'm doubtful, but
it's just daring. But I'll tell you this: you want talking about daring? We have it there for you. We dare you to go to Sleep Cheap.
Yeah,
2801 South Carraway Road. Go see my man Jeff Toddy. Guess what? Mention the promo code PPWP. Get 30% off. It's the one place you can stop for all your sleeping needs, mattresses, beds, whatever. Sleep Cheap is the place to go. I'll tell you another place to go, and that's right here on this Power Pro Wrestling Podcast. I'm in Chris Heineken 1. I know you're on social media, but, what else are you going to add to this to literally make this the place to be? Because this is the place to be.
Yeah, well, we want to also thank the Repost Network. Also, we thank our sponsor, Jeff from Sleep Cheap, like you mentioned, to go check them out. You mentioned our social media outlet that you said you're on at Chris Heineken 1. You can check me at Robert Red Jr. You can follow me. You can tweet me, and I'll respond back to you. We have the Facebook page, The Power of Pro Wrestling, that you can check out. I'm on Instagram as well, and I like to do pictures from time to time of my guests. You can check out pictures of my past guests and maybe even future guests that I will have coming in the future. And you can check all of our social media for the latest news regarding the podcast. You can also support us on Patreon and patreon.com/PPWP.
Exactly.
We have a lot of great content. I have an article up that's called The Hypocrisy of WWE, where I kind of address the Daniel Bryan situation and other great content, and Mr. Heineken can tell you more about it.
And let me add something to what you just said as far as that article goes. It's a must read, ladies and gentlemen. Please. It is extremely cheap, right?
Yeah,
extremely cheap.
$1 a week, and you get, like I said, access to that great content. It's as low as $1, and the more that you support the podcast, the better the reward you get. I even have a $5 tier to where if you do that for 4 weeks straight, you get a WWE Network gift card. So that's something great reason, great value there. So you want to do support us on Patreon. We also are on iTunes and SoundCloud. iTunes, if you search Power Pro Wrestling, you can find us and subscribe, and you get the podcast pushed to you. Yeah, and share it with your friends, and you can do that on iTunes. Our SoundCloud might even be easier. Our SoundCloud channel, SoundCloud.com/PPWP, and you can check out this show and past show. I want to thank you for joining me, Mr. Heineken.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, hey, thank you. You're helping me out doing this podcast, and I thank you, and even thank you, the audience, for listening. And like we said,
because they're the ones helping us out.
Yes, please share this, listen, check it out, and leave your feedback on all of our topics and past shows. Us, and we'll gladly respond to you.
If you got a question you want to throw at us or a curveball you want to throw at us, we welcome the challenge.
Yes, but we want to thank you for joining us right here on the Power of Pro Wrestling Podcast, and we will catch you guys next time.